What's up, everybody? Welcome to Inside the Game, your one source for everything cool in video games. You want to be a part of the show? Then head to InsideTheGame.ca, where there you can submit your clip and end off our show. Did you know we're streaming every day live over on Twitch, 10 a.m. Eastern, Monday to Friday, twitch.tv/theofficialitg. Now this week is another jam-packed episode, everything from horror games to being a pirate. All that and a whole lot more in today's show, so let's get started with the Inside Scoop.
So over the past few months, we've been talking a lot about popular streamers signing on with some of the mainstream streaming apps, whether it be Mixer or Twitch or YouTube. Well, we're going to focus on YouTube here. I know we've talked about Courage JD, one of the popular Fortnite streamers. We're getting to someone that's actually probably a little more popular, PewDiePie. Yeah, PewDiePie. We know he's been in hot water with YouTube, but he's also been one of the biggest, if not the biggest, for the longest time. I think he's actually just been surpassing subscribers just recently. And I mean, that's a huge reign to have as many subscribers as this guy's had for as long as he has. But controversy has followed this guy throughout his entire career on YouTube. He's been known to say some things that are definitely not great, and he's had to apologize for them on many accounts. And it just seems like over the last few years, maybe things have calmed down for him a little bit because YouTube's looking to give him a second chance. They're actually going to sign him to an exclusive streaming deal. PewDiePie has said that he's going to focus on streaming more in 2020, and he wants it to be more of a focus, as we all know that his videos really took over more than his streaming did as far as what brought people to his viewership and his subscription base. So for us, it's a big deal, right? He's a huge streamer, and YouTube's taking chances, but it is a little controversial because some people don't necessarily agree with the things he says, and they may look at it like YouTube just wants to make their money here no matter what, but at the same time, who knows? It's tough, right? It's one of those situations that, there's a lot of debate here, but honestly, for PewDiePie, this is a great second chance for him, and hopefully he can really nail it.
We may have defeated Chronica, but the story's not over in Mortal Kombat 11. Coming out with new DLC called Aftermath, we're getting new stages, stage fatalities, new skins, new fighters, and a returning fighter as well. Fujin coming in, as well as Shiva, a returning character, and a nice little twist in RoboCop. All that is coming May 26th.
You are under arrest, dirtbag.
EA has come out and detailed that they are going to release 14 new titles to consoles this year. They want to make sure that you know that Medal of Honor VR is coming, among a bunch of other standouts like the Command & Conquer remake. Also in that list was an untitled HD remake that users have since figured out to be the Mass Effect trilogy. We're starting to think that there's a lot of weight to this supposed rumor now. We will be seeing Mass Effect trilogy soon.
So last year, the guys and I got to check out Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and EA's come out this past week over the huge success that game had last year upon release and how much fun it actually was to jump back into such a great Star Wars game. EA has announced that this is going to be the first one in a franchise for this entire series, so this isn't going to be the last time we're going to see Cal Kestis. EA has publicly acknowledged Respawn's action RPG is the start of a new franchise following its huge critical and commercial success last year. Speaking in an earnings call this week, EA CEO Andrew Wilson referred to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order as the first title in an entirely new franchise, implying that it's just the beginning for Cal Kestis and his motley crew of Jedi hunters. and a sequel could already be in the works, as Respawn Entertainment has listed 3 new job listings for developers on their website, with the Apex studio saying they're creating a new game set in a universe far, far away.
Well, if you're looking to play some sports, right now we're just not able to. But if you're a gamer, that changes things. And if you're a golfer, well, we've got something exciting for you. There is PGA Tour 2K21 on the rise, a brand new golf game that looks awesome. We've only seen a bit of a small teaser, but we're going to find out more on May 14th.
In other EA news, Skate 4 is in the headlines again, as skateboarding legend Jason Dill was recently called and asked for his part in a Skate 3 mobile version? Giving some of his personal opinion, he stated that he is not interested in working in a mobile version of any Skate. However, he is willing to work with them on a Skate 4 if they decide to go through with that project. So far, it's rung hollow. Giving some more of his own inside information, he kind of confirmed the new Tony Hawk Pro Skater game, saying that he has licensed some of his skateboard designs for that title. Tony Hawk Pro Skater is one thing, but a skate mobile app is just something I can't get behind. If only EA really wanted to print money, Skate 4 should be coming down the pipe soon.
Alright, Xbox Game Pass fans, April's coming on, but guess what? May's here, and you know what that brings? All new games to Game Pass. We're going to be getting Red Dead Redemption 2. That's right, Red Dead Redemption 2. I'm telling you, if you don't have Game Pass now, you need to get Game Pass just to play this game. It's so much game. You're getting your value like crazy for this one. So I had to just let that one out first because I'm a huge Red Dead fan and I don't think anybody should miss out on the opportunity for this one. But we're also getting DayZ, Final Fantasy IX, and Fractured Minds. And this is all on the Xbox One. Over on the PC side, we're going to be getting Halo 2, Final Fantasy IX as well, and Endless Legends. And the list of games leaving Xbox Game Pass on Xbox for the month of May are Grand Theft Auto 5, Black Desert, Doom, Lego Ninjago, Mega Man Legacy Collection 2, Metal Gear Survive, The Banner Saga, and Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus. And games leaving Xbox Game Pass for PC this month in May: Imperator Rome, Rise of the Tomb Raider, The Banner Saga, West of Loathing, and Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus.
Well, if you missed the Inside Xbox update for 2020, don't worry, we've got you covered. Xbox listed a ton of games that they want you to know has support for the Xbox Series X. A ton of titles were announced, some world premieres, but let's get into it. There was Bright Memory Infinite, a single developer worked on this game, Call of the Sea, Chorus, a space combat game, Dirt 5, an anime action game, Scarlet Nexus, Scorn, Second Extinction, The Ascent, The Medium, Vampire the Masquerade 2, Yakuza Like a Dragon. And lastly, they ended off the presentation with a supposed gameplay trailer for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It was very exciting, but it wasn't quite the gameplay that everybody was looking for. Aaron Greenberg has responded since to that controversy, stating that they regret kind of giving the false illusion that it was going to be more combat gameplay. They just wanted to show off some in-game engine running, and that was supposed to be the message. Controversy aside, we're pretty excited here at ITG for the next generation of consoles and this strong launch and this confidence-inspiring video from Inside Xbox.
All right, Scott, are you ready to survive the Endzone?
I'm ready.
but we have prepared ourselves for our chance to make things right.
Scott, you and I jumped into Endzone, A World Apart, an early access game over on Steam. This is an apocalyptic survival city builder. I honestly been having a good time. This is kind of also our genre too. What do you think about Endzone?
Yeah, so we've gone through a few of the similar titles, but there's something about Endzone that I actually really enjoy, and I think it kind of puts it aside from the other games we've played.
Sure.
I'm not sure exactly what it is, though. The view of it is quite unique. It looks pretty sharp compared to some of the other ones we've played.
Yep.
And those cutscenes are really clean.
They are really clean. Like that intro, the opening cinematic to the game, I thought was incredible. Dude, that kind of set the bar and the tone of the game moving forward.
Oh, yeah.
And the fact that it's only early access, too. Like, this is just the beginning stages of Endzone, A World Apart. So, to get that presentation and polish right off the hop, you kind of get this feeling of hope moving forward that you can do this. You can survive and build your community and stuff. And then you get into the game. And recently, you and I played Surviving the Aftermath over on the Xbox. And I kind of had that sense of the same feeling. You're out there gathering resources to help build your community. You're building gardens, you're building homes, you're building recycling centers.
I think it's things we've seen before, but it works well in this one. You don't have to assign this resource chains into this resources. It's all just handled by what buildings are created. So I like that. It's kind of a little bit simplified, but it's such a complicated thing. But now that we're veterans of this kind of genre, now like I understand what I'm looking at, and this one's more methodical growth. It's more of an optimistic kind of thing, less about combating kind of the wasteland that's still going, more of a rebuilding kind of thing. And maybe we'll see some more hostilities being added to the game as time goes on. It is always being added to, and the developers are, good about posting patch notes and things like that.
Well, the problem I had, honestly, if anybody is new to this genre and is looking to get into the city builder, you typically start with a tutorial. Mm-hmm. But the biggest problem with the game is that the tutorial is so limited for information. It basically just presents you with a task of options to do. That, okay, you need to do this, you need to get this resource, you need to get this building set up. But it doesn't explain what part of the menu you need to go to. It doesn't explain why you need to go there, and it doesn't explain to you how to find all these resources. So to get started, I was a little lost in the sense of I don't know the menu system. Like, I just jumped into this game. So you go to a tutorial that you can then understand, build an understanding of where you need to get all these items and the menus and build your knowledge of the game moving forward, so that when you do jump into the actual campaign, you know what you're doing, what you're looking for. But the tutorial did not explain any of that whatsoever, and I found that honestly really frustrating.
Yeah, it would have done a lot better to kind of give you an explanation on what you're doing, or put arrows on the screen, highlight buttons. That kind of thing didn't really happen. It just gives you a direction. Establish food, but it doesn't tell you the systems ever how much food a certain thing will create per minute or per hour or whatever. There's no kind of math to assess what you need to build to sustain a group of 20 people or 40 people. When you get up to 100 people in these settlements, everything happens so quickly that it's hard to tell, if I'm actually building in the proper direction. It's kind of easy to establish food and water for everybody until they become comfortable with that, procreate, and now you have double the population you had before. It's very hard to manage that exponential growth. But there's a lot of fun in it, and that's where the game lies in the later sections when you're going out for expeditions or setting up power or some of these more advanced things. It gives you more of that classical city builder feeling where I'm not just throwing together scrap in a pile. Now I'm kind of planning where my streets are in more of a city skylines kind of sense. I like that. It kind of is more angled towards the casual and creative person instead of the survival hard, playthrough.
Scott, as fans of the city building genre, how did you feel about Endzone: A World Apart?
Well, it's complicated like they all are, but once you get past that little bit of learning curve, I find the game is a little bit more casual than the normal game in the genre. So for me, I will recommend this one because I like the more relaxed city building aspect of it instead of, worrying about what storm is going to destroy me. But those difficulties are there if it's something you want to play.
Yeah, you know what? I had a great time playing the game. I love the ability just to kind of sit and chill out and focus on building my community without the worries. Like, I hit a dry spell, but yet it didn't crush me to no end. But if you take your time and build up resources and the proper buildings, you're able to kind of really thrive your community and build it into something that's really, really cool. Because this isn't a full game, though, we're only recommending or not recommending. So for me, I'm definitely recommending Endzone: A World Apart.
Endzone: A World Apart is a fun and rewarding city builder, easy to sink a lot of hours into.
Corey, are you ready for a bunch of card of outlaws? Corey, you and I checked out Pirate Outlaws, a card-based pirate adventure game. What did you think of this one?
Well, you know what? I've played a few of these deck builders now. Most recently, I played a game called A Long Way Down. It was an RPG deck builder. Had a few different elements, but kind of similar setup to this game. And something I noticed kind of jumping right into this game is the art style. We always talk about art style, you and I, and I think it's always a good one to start off with. But this one is, it's kind of this simplified style. You know what I mean? I'm not saying it's not overly complicated, but for some reason it was still visually pleasing to me. Like the character models are simple and the colors aren't flashy, but it just fits this style of game, right? I mean, we're not into this high, heavy action style when we get into these deck builders, but at the same time, there's a lot of animation that happens when we're playing this, and for me, I don't know, I played a few of these, and this one left a really good impression, and I think it's just because how straightforward this game is. Like, I don't want to use simple because I think a lot of people would say simple when they talk about this game, but straightforward for me, because it's one of those things where there's not a ton of elements to take into play here. You start building your deck early on in this game, but it's very clear on what the cards do and how you use them and, when to use them. And it's just about mastering that strategy that really, is the hard part with this game. What did you think playing this one?
I'm actually right there with you. The art style is what kind of drew me in. I feel it has that old school Disney-esque with a comic book touch to it, like, you know what I mean?
Okay, yeah. I can agree for sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool, very simplistic, but at the same time, it doesn't have to be, like you say, flashy, right? It has these cool animations that play out as you play and you use your cards, and you're either kind of defending yourself or putting shields on you, or you're kind of shooting or stabbing at the other pirate enemies, and you're going out and you're traversing over the landscape of the sea through this map, and your dotted map, and you go from one using AP points, right? So you can only use so many points to move to the next objective, and then from there you get into a battle, or you get into a shop where you can upgrade your stuff, or you can bring on some health, or some other kind of perks that will help you into the battle, which then will lead to ultimately a boss fight in the end. And then getting to that point, though, can sometimes be a little complicated to the fact that you start off with so much health when you start a round, and when you get to the boss fight himself, you have that health, what you started with at the beginning. So whether you do well leading up in those rounds to the boss fight himself determines on what kind of health your level will be at when you face the boss in the end. So I thought that was kind of a neat take, that I wasn't getting a health regen per se when I got to the end, that I'm all of a sudden 100%. So it's a strategic thought going into each battle of, how can I fight off these two, sometimes three other pirates, depending on what you're matched with? And how do you keep your health going forward to the point when you get to the boss that you're not less than half a health, or if you do get there, then you can buy health as I said when you get in the shop. So I thought going into this thing, I thought it was cool. You could appreciate the art style, and then the battle system, and then the cards. Often a lot of card games sometimes get a little too complicated and a little too complex, that you're pulling off moves, and sometimes all of a sudden your cards are all gone, and then you're dropping 10 health points, and you have no idea as to what just happened, right? How many times have we done that in card games? Too many times for me to remember. But each time I used a card, I always knew what I was doing. So I kind of felt comfortable moving forward. Dude, I just sat back, and I thought it was, like you say, you don't want to use the word simple, because it's not a simple game. It's just, I just think it was a little more understanding and easier to get into to build your deck moving forward. And depending on what pirate hero you chose, kind of determines the stats moving into each round. So I thought it was really cool. Honestly, man, I had a blast playing Pirate Outlaws. I've loved every minute playing the game. I thought it was really cool so far.
Yeah, you know what? It was a blast, Drew. Getting into this game, deck builders can always be tough, especially if you're new to this genre and you've never played before. Like you said, there's lots of things when it comes to the cards. If you're not reading them all, or some of these games have so much information on the cards that even if you read it, you can't remember it all. This game's very simple. You have ammo, you have melee maneuvers, or you have magic, and you have, buffs and debuffs. And they're very clear. You click on the card, it gives you a short but really descriptive description of what that's going to be, and you know how to use that card. And the idea is basically just learning how to, as you build your deck, to balance it properly, so that when you are in these battles, you're not taking as much damage, because like you said, there's only certain places you can get more health along the way, and if you actually don't plan your trip up the map properly, you may actually miss the opportunity to get some of that health, right? And the idea is sometimes you don't want to rush right to the top and get to the boss. Maybe you want to build your deck up, so there are portals and things like that allow you to actually move around, and you may be up here and then the portal will bring you back down, and then you can fight through a couple more battles. And there's things like that that it's the kind of that hidden depth in this game, that when you start to build your strategies and build your decks going into this, that it gets a lot more complex. That's why I didn't want to use the word simple, because I don't think it gives this game justice. I think it has a simple look to it and a simple feel, but it is so far from simple, because this game has so much replayability, just because there's it's unlimited how you can build your decks. You can do it so many different ways, and like you said, there's a ton of different characters that you can choose from and unlock along the way, and that changes everything up as well too, right? So you could have certain characters and have certain decks just for those characters, depending on how you want to play through. And there was a lot of content in this game for a $25 price tag on Steam, I believe. You play through the tutorial, which I thought was good. Then there's the Pirates Bay mission, and I believe there's 3 more unlockable maps that allow you to. There's a ton in this game. So again, it's just one of those things where I had a blast playing it, and I think this game is kind of a good one for people that haven't really dipped their toes into the water on this type of genre.
Absolutely. I think this is kind of your starter kit to get into card-based games, where you don't have to jump into something complex and get worried of all of a sudden you're using cards that just don't make any sense. Everything here is laid out right in front of you. It's simple to understand, and moving forward, it allows you to kind of get into a little bit more deeper and get into that depth of building your deck. And then when you choose different pirate heroes to go out and face with as well, all of a sudden now you got to kind of take a look at their stats and what do they bring to the table. Sometimes they'll only have 2 bullet slots and not enough ammo, right? Moving forward, if you get used and comfortable to that 3 slots of that ammo,
it can
right?
be tough. It can be tough.
Exactly. All of a sudden now you're dropping down to only 2 hits. You're kind of going, oh crap, now you got to change up your strategy. And how do you go about doing that and building your deck for that pirate? So I thought that was cool. I thought the art style was awesome. I think it's a great starter, and honestly, it's kind of a hidden treasure. Corey, what are you going to score Pirate Outlaws? The believe, I think, is a hidden treasure.
You know what? Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah, you know what? It could be that hidden treasure chest at the bottom of the ocean. But you know what? As far as, deck building games go, this one is a really good introductory game. Introductory to advanced, I'm going to say, just because of all the elements in this game. But it's so approachable, and I think that'll be the big reason this game's successful. And I think it's a big reason I had such a good time with it. I got to give this one an 8 out of 10.
Nice. You know what? I'm almost there with you. I'm actually a little bit higher. I thought it was so easy to get into, but yet you can still expect the depth moving forward. It does get complex and more challenging, especially when you lead up some of the boss fights and such, that it was just a nice new addition to what seems to be a very populated genre. But Pirate Outlaws for me is getting an 8.5.
Nice. If you're looking to get into a roguelike deck builder, look no further than this one. With easy to navigate mechanics and really fun casual gameplay, you're going to find yourself swashbuckling in no time.
No buts. Two things. First, nobody knows these woods better than I do. If I can't find her, nobody can. And second, it's what I do.
This one's a little bit more action-packed and on the horror side. This is Someday You'll Return. You're in this park looking for your daughter, and that's the majority of the plot here. You are trying to follow her last footsteps, some little hints scattered here and there, and a lot of your old memories from this camp and the mountainside that you visited as a child. Now, a lot of these locations have some significance to you, so you go through and you're left with this story being told of your memories from the past and kind of what's going on in the future as you pick up the scraps to try and find your daughter. It's a really cool story, and they definitely took into account the pacing of how they tell it. This game is very, very long, considering the gameplay that is involved. The puzzles can definitely hold you up for extra time, but even if that's not an issue, there's still a lot of scenery and a lot of exploration to go through. These mountainsides are just packed. They put a lot of collectibles into this, and a lot of different, almost seemingly missable, different things that you can explore in the map. Now, we've reviewed quite a lot of these walking sim horror slash games before. I want to highlight that this one is definitely a little heavier with the horror, and I'm a huge fan of that myself. I really enjoy those gameplay moments, and it breaks up the pace of the walking. There's a lot of sections that are just packed with enemies, this crazy black goo substance, and a lot of puzzles to kind of get you around those hazards.
The exit from the camp is behind the black, whatever this is. I don't want to risk even touching that stuff.
Now, the puzzles are the roadblock that prevents you from progressing through the story. But there's a few roadblocks that kind of prevent you from progressing through the puzzles. There's a couple systems that you have at your disposal to navigate the world and to, maybe unlock certain abilities or to give yourself enhancements to get through different places. One example of this is the alchemy. They have this whole alchemy system that involves you collecting herbs from the ground, cutting them up and harvesting their individual parts, and then taking the petals or the leaves or the roots and crushing them up and adding them to a potion. It's a really cool system. I think it works really well for a lot of things. It only really falters in the description of some of the potions. Some of the potions, it just tells you in a loose wording how to add things in which order, or, use these crushed petals versus crushed leaves. It just says mix them together. Examples of that where it's not 100% clear how to do the potion, but it's one of those things where when you figure it out, you kind of go, oh, okay. And it makes a lot more sense from then on. I'm now in the game where I've found this diary. There's all these mysteries involved in the diary. It gives you the sense that there's a lot of outer world things that you can do alongside the plot. taking the right potion, I can hear the thoughts of the writer of the notes that I'm finding. So there's different things that maybe give you more information if you're paying attention. And I like that looseness. Even if it's totally linear, I feel like I have the freedom to kind of play it in a different way. Aside from the alchemy system, you have an inventory, and it's pretty expansive. You get a tool set early on, and it allows you to manipulate some of the items in the world that you find, whether it be unscrewing something or using a hammer to break something open. You have that tool set available, and when you find the different items that are combinable, it'll allow you to interact with them in the menus. And I think that works really well. The closest parallel I can think of to that is Amnesia. That game has a great inventory system. I feel like they took this inventory and kind of stepped it up for this game. It's a little bit more intuitive than I remember Amnesia being, and just having the tool set on screen or letting it black out when it's not available is very helpful. And it allows you to interact with the world, to produce a ladder to cross a crevasse, or just to craft a certain item to read it, let's say. They're very creative with the ways you solve the puzzles and the different items that you find along the way. There's a lot of riddles in this game, and I like that. I like the language-based, I like the math-based riddles. There's some that make no sense almost. It's alien symbols, but when you get it, you're like, oh, okay, I finally feel like I've accomplished something. The game is also really long, so you get a lot of these accomplishments. You get a lot of these tutorial windows popping up when you thought you'd be past that. It's really interesting how they keep you going in this long game without getting bored of it in any way by introducing new systems as you go. It changes the pace of a lot of the sections, and it really spices up what could have been a stale experience.
No way.
Stella, I'm coming.
Production-wise, this game is pretty tight. I've experienced some very minor bugs relating to when you creep into an area and you get visibly bothered. There's a sickness that creeps over you or something, or you collapse on the hands and knees. I've had stutter and frame rate issues around those animations, but that is really it as far as bugs. Production-wise, seems to be very well produced. The visuals are nice and sharp. The graphics are better than they would ever need to be. It's a beautiful scenery, beautiful vistas that you're exposed to. So the graphics really do help in those scenarios. But there's a big focus on audio. The audio here is also really tight. There's a lot of little whispers when you're in certain areas that allude to those kind of extra things you can do in the game. But there's also a lot of horror elements. They do a good job of kind of startling you when you need it and kind of leaning off when you don't need it. There's a lot of sound cues in some of the more action-packed sequences where you need to run away from something, and they're bone-chilling. I really like that attention to detail when it comes to the horror elements, because that's not 100% of this game, but it really does hammer in those moments. It's a lot about the ambience and the creeping out factor. So when you hit a paced section that's much faster, you're ready to go. It's a feeling that you've been kind of trying to let out the entire experience.
I made it.
Well, I don't want to talk about this game too much further because I don't want to give anything away. There's a lot to it, and I want you to explore it for yourself and kind of see where you line up in this game, because it is a mix of genres, and I think they did a really good job of making something that kind of goes beyond the basic walking sim horror experience. This one was a really big standout for me, and if I'm going to put a score on this one, it's going to have to be an 8.5 out of 10. This really excelled in a lot of categories, and I'm hooked coming back for more to figure out what is going on this mountainside. I'm in.
It's definitely connected to the black traps below. Maybe if I destroyed it.
Great combination of genre-defining action and storytelling, a must-try for fans of a horror mystery experience.
What was that? Gotta hide.
So, Scott, let's explore the cosmos in Space Engineers. So, Scott, this week we got to check out Space Engineers, a game that was originally out on PC quite a while ago and mentioned to come to console in 2014, and it's finally here. So, what did you think jumping into this one?
Well, I was actually unaware of Space Engineers before this, so it was a pretty big surprise to me to jump into this game in this world and see all the tools and items available to you to build whatever you want, basically. It was quite a surprise to get into a fully made custom kind of campaign and then go through one of those scenarios and play around with it. It was pretty cool. It gives you the potential, or a view of the potential that this kind of a game has, but it's a little clunky. What did you think of that?
Okay, well, like you jumping into this, I've never heard of Space Engineers before, mainly because I'm not a huge PC gamer, so it wasn't really on my radar. So when we got to check it out, I was like, oh, this is pretty interesting. It's not necessarily my style of game, and actually, I think early on you mentioned it's like kind of like a Minecraft-esque in its simulation of building and crafting, and there's a lot of those aspects in this game. It's very involved. There's lots of menus. There's lots of reading. There's lots of understanding. Yes. And for me, that's really where it kind of fell apart a little bit, is where I didn't feel like I had a whole ton of direction. Yes, when you first get in, there's this campaign that you do jump into that has, up in the top left corner, you have some objectives to complete, and it tells you, the basic controls, and you kind of learn how to maneuver around, because even just moving in this game I found to be a little difficult, especially because it's not necessarily as linear as some would think, right? Like the controlling of it is I found the sensitivity was high, but also because we're in zero gravity, so that has a lot to do with this simulation. And for me, it did feel kind of clunky. Like you said, I'm playing on the original Xbox, so that probably has something to do with it. I imagine the Xbox One X probably is optimized for this game and maybe plays it a little smoother, but I had some issues when you start to get into some of the functions in the game, and then moving around while some of that stuff was happening, I was getting a lot of frame drop, so it was kind of a hindrance in moving forward in this one. And there was some other kind of glitchy gameplay bugs, like my blowtorch wasn't working properly when I needed to repair this door very early on in the game, so I thought maybe I was doing something wrong. You know what I'm talking about. It was very early on.
Yeah,
and I couldn't get the blowtorch to fix the door, and I tried everything. I went into the menus, and what I actually found was that when I restarted and went back into the level, I was able just to go and approach the door, use the blowtorch like normal, and then it worked fine. So I was like, man, this stuff shouldn't be happening. But I do understand when you bring a game from PC to Xbox that's this involved, there's gonna be some growing pains.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of interaction going on, and a lot that the computer has to handle on the back end. I have the S model of Xbox, and I was still getting a lot of frame rate chugging when a lot of my pieces were being destroyed. I don't know if I clipped it properly, but I did fly a spaceship right into the surface of a moon. That was spectacular, but it did slow my console down quite a lot, and didn't survive the encounter. So there's a lot of fun to be had when you're maneuvering these ships that are already pre-built, or constructing your own thing. But I feel like this on console was kind of just, maybe it wasn't ready. Maybe the consoles aren't ready for this yet. Or maybe you're supposed to do more of a mouse and keyboard approach, but not having that heavy PC computing backend is kind of a hindrance, like you said.
Oh,
There's so many little bits to each part that you create for a spaceship that it's so complicated when you get all these different pieces and all the different materials and knowing what to craft to make what. I feel like it wasn't explained super well, but I also feel like I'm missing a part of it. And maybe on PC it kind of is explained a little bit better.
You know what, I hear you there. There isn't a ton of direction, especially when it gets in, because everything in this game is really involved. There's a lot of detail in this when it comes to building your ships or building outposts on planets, and doing any sort of crafting in this game. It's it's very detailed, so you can customize every little thing about it, and that's awesome. Like, that's the kind of freedom I think that every gamer wants in a game, but it feels like almost too much power to have with the controller. You know what I mean? Like you said, it's that mouse and keyboard feel where if I had that even hooked up to the Xbox, I think my experience with this game would have been significantly better. because I did find that, yeah, with the controller, it's just the interface of the game isn't made for a controller. Like
There's
it
yeah.
isn't as intuitive. Yeah, there's just too much to select, and getting around the menus, even just with the D-pad, I found was difficult because it's jumping all over the page.
And right bumper, left bumper, you hold that, and it gives you different options for each of the D-pads. Like, yeah, it was a little bit overcomplicated to stuff into a controller. When you're moving the character around, you get this really fast rush of speed, but again, the camera's really far out, and I can't figure out how to manipulate that. And sometimes when you're in third person, but you get all the way up to like a rock or something, it snaps to first person. So there's some things that are just, I feel like I'm just interacting with this game improperly. There's a huge amount of stuff you can build and create if you're of that mindset.
It's endless.
It's actually endless. You can program doors, you can program circuits to do different things. Even you can. I'm sure there's somebody out there who has made like a PLC program with the devices. But and that's amazing. This is the Minecraft of the space that I would love to see. But it's just so hard to get into because it's behind this wall of controller issues, and also to get anybody else's downloaded worlds to experience them for yourself, you have to go and open up the Edge browser on the Xbox. Yeah. You have to link your account and pull these off of a website to bring them into your game, and that's just definitely would have worked a lot better on PC. You can tell. Yeah. I never would be opening Microsoft Edge, so that's the first issue. On my Xbox, I've never used it, so it's just so foreign to me. So unfortunately, I had a pretty negative experience trying to get into the creative side of it. But from the potential that I saw, and in the campaign mode, and even just survival messing around, I was able to have some fun. So I'm very mixed on this one.
Well, you know what? I think we could probably go back and forth because I think we both see the potential with this game, but we've experienced all the shortcomings, at least thus far, with what the game's experiencing since coming to Xbox from PC. So if you'd have to throw a score on this, Scott, what do you think you're going to give your experience playing Space Engineers?
Well, I have to put a little asterisk. This is Space Engineers on the Xbox for me that I'm scoring here, not the PC version. Yeah. I have yet to get into that, and I would still be, very curious to. But on the Xbox side, I have to give this one a 5 out of 10. There's just too much that's missing that I believe is the main package.
You know what? I'm right there with you. I was feeling the same thing, right? I was kind of excited jumping into this once I realized what the game was all about and, how heavy it was into the simulation and the crafting. But once I start navigating through the game, I start realizing that using a controller was just not the way to play this. And until they can, optimize controller usage in this game, I think it's going to struggle for especially newer gamers, not necessarily, people that have played it on PC before. So I've got to give it a 5 as well. With as much success as this title's had on PC, the port over to Xbox has left a lot to be desired here. The game mechanics seem glitchy at times, and there's just currently a lot of little bugs in this game that make extended play very difficult. But if you can make it through some of these bugs and glitches, there's definitely an extensive building survival sim here. Hey guys, this week I'm flying solo and I'm checking out Rogue Heroes, Ruins of Tasos. So this week I got an early look at Rogue Heroes Ruins of Tasos. And let me tell you, right off the bat, I'm just going to say Link to the Past, because that's what this reminds me of. This is definitely a top-down hack and slash Zelda-esque game. And that's not a bad thing by any means. I was a huge fan of those games back when I was younger. I still play them now. So it's just one of those things where when you get into a game like this and it's so familiar, even just by the looks, you kind of get excited, especially if you were a fan in the past. So jumping right into this, there's kind of a simple tutorial that just kind of gets you used to the controls if you're playing on a keyboard and mouse. And actually, you can play on a controller of this as well, which I think is an awesome function. And both work very well. I've tried both out. And I'm just trying to play on a keyboard and mouse through this one because I've said it many times, I am not very good in keyboard and mouse. So games like this that maybe don't have as many controls will maybe help me out and get a little better at that. But overall, when you first get into this game, there's a little bit of lore that you read through, as a lot of these types of games have a lot of dialogue that you play through, but it really builds the story and kind of sets the tone for this one when you first get in, and you know, kind of understanding who you are and why you're there and exactly what you're trying to accomplish. And you're trying to basically bring order back to the land of Tasos by kind of fighting off this evil force that has now taken over. But the nice thing is you don't have to do this alone if you don't want to. This game is completely playthrough solo if you'd like, but you can also play up to 4 players of online multiplayer, which I think is awesome. Having this kind of co-op-esque feel in a game like this that, you know, you didn't have when you played Zelda, and now you have this. And for me, I just thought that was kind of a cool added bonus to be able to have a game like this and also be able to play with your friends along the way, because there are multiple classes in this game. You start off as kind of your average kind of base warrior that has a certain ability, like a charge ability, and every other class that you unlock, there's a few that you get right off the bat, and there's a few that you unlock as the game progresses. But for me, I kind of just stayed with the regular one just to get a feel for the game, but it allows you to really customize your playthrough, whether you want to be a mage or a tank. There's options for everybody here, and they all have their own kind of special ability, which I thought was really, really cool. Really cool feature in this game that I found while I was playing through was the fact that all the dungeons are procedurally generated. So no matter if I'm going into the same dungeon every time, it's going to be a different experience. Whether the room layouts are different, the traps are different, I'm seeing different enemies at different parts, it's always a little bit different. And that makes the replayability of this game really high. And the fact that this is kind of a grind out style game anyways, it makes it really nice, because then you're not just doing the same things over and over again. So whenever you do go into the same dungeon, it does feel like a different experience. So it kind of takes a little bit of that grind away, or at least doesn't make you feel like, you know, it's that excruciating. And that's something that I really enjoyed in this. Outside of the dungeons, there's a massive overworld here. There's a ton of secrets and things to unlock along the way. The map, when you first get in, is kind of covered by this fog of war, so it allows you to kind of discover different areas, and certain areas will unlock after you've advanced, you know, far enough throughout the game. But there's a ton of customization here, and when I say that, I mean the town that your character comes from is fully customizable. Whether it comes to your house, any of the shops in the town, there's so much you can upgrade and do here, whether it's your weapons that you want to upgrade, certain things in your home. There's just a ton of options, and that's something I wasn't necessarily expecting jumping into this, because I kind of thought it was going to be more combat based, but really there's something here for everybody. If you don't love the combat style, you don't have to necessarily always be grinding that out. You can be fishing, there's lots of different things you could do here, and that is what kind of makes this game unique. It kind of lets it stand out from, you know, playing those older Zelda style games. This is kind of bringing it into, you know, the new age, and for me, that's the kind of updates I like to see, especially, you know, when they take a skin from an old classic like Link to the Past. I want to quickly touch on the co-op for this game, because I thought it was really cool the way they've set this up. It's not a kind of, you know, main player sidekick type setup. The nice thing is any player that you add into your game, up to 4 players, gets to create their own character and level that character up just like you're leveling your character up throughout the game. And the better part is if they want to leave and go play solo, they can take that character and continue their progress in the solo game. I thought that was awesome. And when it comes to to the dungeons, they've taken into account, if you're playing with more players as well, with the fact that you're going to find more traps, a little more pressure plates. There's going to be a bunch of different things that you're going to run into when you have more people in your party, and it's definitely going to up the difficulty. But I think that's what's going to make it so much fun when you do play this with other people, is that it's going to be challenging, and depending on the character builds and the team makeup that you have, I think is really going to determine the success you're going to have while playing through this. Alright guys, that's first look at Rogue Heroes Ruins of Tasos. I mean, I had a great time playing this game. It brought me back to the old Legends of Zelda days, Link to the Past. I mean, that's my style of game. I just had a blast playing this one. I like the updated mechanics when it comes to some of the RPG elements, when you can upgrade pretty well everything in this game, so you can really fit your play style. The co-op is a huge bonus. Honestly, when this game comes out this summer for full release on Steam, I'm gonna have a hard time not recommending it. So make sure you check this one out. Overall, Rogue Heroes was a great top-down hack and slash adventure game, and the fact that the co-op allows you and up to 3 of your friends play and have your own progress was a huge bonus. And there's so much customization in here, whether it's your weapons, your class, your town. There's so much to do in this game, and it's still just early release. You know what? I gotta recommend this one.
Well guys, this week I received an interesting email that kind of sparked up I thought would be a great conversation, and that is THQ Nordic, which seems to be coming across as a very interesting company in the fact that they're purchasing a lot of old titles. And our biggest question is, what are they doing with these titles? So when the email came in, I saw a familiar title that I haven't seen in a very, very long time, and I'm talking about a game called Second Sight. Now, this released in 1997, and to be honest, not too many people I actually speak to in my own community, in such as ours, that no one really talks about this game. And my cousin mentioned it to me a long time ago. He goes, "Hey, have you heard of this game? Like, I played this thing. This was cool." And I'm like, "Dude, you're the only other person I know of who's actually played this game." And I absolutely loved it. But they've gone on a binge of buying up old titles, and they kind of seem to be sitting on them, and we're kind of questioning, what are they doing with these titles? And things like Second Sight, and Time Splitters, and Kingdoms of Amalur Reckoning. Guys, what are they doing?
It feels like we've been talking about THQ Nordic over the last year. Off and on sporadically, that they've picked up the rights for this game, or they've picked up the rights for this game, and usually sparks a conversation because one of us has some sort of attachment to one of these titles. Like you said, Time Splitters. I was a huge Time Splitters guy, and I looked up Second Sight after you told me about it, and I was like, how did I miss this game? This game looks awesome. So I don't know, it's weird because they are buying up a lot of titles, but they're just sitting on them. So is it just a matter of quantity, and they just want to have the rights in case somebody wants to make that game again? I don't know. What do you think, Scott? It's weird.
It is definitely weird, and it kind of seems maybe like some corporate posturing. I hope that we see something come of all these titles, but it very well might be a move to just acquire things that might compete or come back and would just, wipe the board off whatever they have currently in production. That's kind of my worry, is that maybe it's just some kind of subterfuge to hold on to them forever. We do a lot of game relics, and a lot of them end up with, unfortunately, this, somebody has bought the rights and they're just shelving it. It seems odd because we have actually covered some of these. Alone in the Dark, Time Splitters, I think, was definitely one of them.
Absolutely.
So now that we're seeing them change hands again, maybe we'll see some sort of new game pop up. Who knows? HD remakes, anyone?
Yeah. Well, there's definitely a lot of more rumors about now moving into the next gen that we're going to get more remasters. And we just saw, obviously, Final Fantasy VII remastered. which has been in the works forever. But when the email came in, like there was certain titles here, Risen, which is a third-person action RPG from way back in the day, and it's seen iterations since. Like we've seen sequels to it. Sacred, which we've seen sequels to, is this Diablo-esque kind of RPG game from way back on like PC days. So like to see these games pop up, I just kind of perked an interest. I'm like, man, what are you doing with them? Again, Second Sight is a science fiction action-adventure stealth video game featuring protagonists with memory of their past and psychic abilities, kind of like Tasos back in the day. But this was a PlayStation 2 Xbox OG title. Yeah. Like, man, these aren't games from like yesterday. They're from like yesteryears. Like these are going way back. And I'm curious as to why even bother purchasing these titles if you're not going to do anything with them. Like you're paying for the license to own these games. You don't buy a property just to kind of sit on it.
Yeah, that would be a very negative thing to do with all these different properties. There's so many of them, and I'm looking at the list, and there is even some from last year and the year prior. Even Remnant from the Ashes stands out. That's a more recent game, so they're definitely making a move. This is some kind of power move, and I think we'll see it kind of work itself out in a couple of years' time. You know, maybe some of these will start popping up again. For certain ones, there's things like Time Splitters. You know, they could just make something in the universe of. It doesn't have to be a direct sequel, and I think that would be a better move marketing-wise.
Definitely.
Yeah, because you're kind of bringing them up as if they were brand new, and then there'll be some of us that are wise to it. But I think that's the best case scenario when you're bringing out, an old property like that.
That's the one I want to bring back is Time Splitters. Sorry,
Time Splitters.
I just like out of all the ones on the list, I had a blast playing that game. That would be a game that I think would transfer well to the gen console we're currently on, next gen possibly. Who knows, right? And again, that's one of the larger titles off this list that maybe could have some traction at some point because it's maybe so easily remade.
Well, that'll wrap up this week's show. Now, each and every week, you guys hit us up at InsideTheGame.ca where you submit your clip and end off our show. This week, we actually have Corey and his crew kicking it in GTA Online. So thanks so much for sticking around, and we'll see you next week Inside the Game.
When I ran agents in the field, I had to entrap them, cajole them, threaten them with deportation. You're never gonna know what I had to do. Now, apparently, all you gotta do is give them a couple bucks and a few kind words. I guess there really is no accounting for stupidity. But, and I'm serious now, as stupid as you are not gonna talk about what happened here. Because your usefulness to us, well, it just ran out. And for God's sake, I hope you're professional enough to get rid of the evidence.